Follow along. Hey there. There's a party in here tonight. So exciting.
You must be an engineer, so I knew you ready. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 5:30 on the 28th. Roll call. Jason is excused. Here, Sylvia's here, John's here, Michael's here, Nessa called in late. And is Janet here?
I haven't heard that she wasn't coming, so
Okay, so,
see how.
continue to go from there. Approval of, everybody have a chance to read the minutes of the meeting? Can I have a motion? Second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, question, street end report, has that been approved yet? The street end,
We did
Update.
the report,
I know, but has it gone through council and been?
but we presented it to council, so
Cool, so
we
we
give
can,
some direction. We'll talk about that tonight
Good.
afterwards, yeah. Janet's here.
Thanks. Okay, you're all in favor of the minutes? It has.
Yep.
Okay. Approved. Any public comments, or we're gonna wait until
Well, you can ask for public comment, but,
anyone here for public comment at this time? Oh, okay, we'll move on to new business. We have Cal here to present an Eagle Scout project, and the presentation was included in our packet.
it was, well
And
done.
he's gonna go over that right now and do a presentation.
welcome, Cal. Do you want to, are you gonna move it forward for him?
I'll let him be in charge. Okay.
That looks very impressive.
Hi, my name is Cal Yoshi. I'm a life scout here at Troop 436 here in Lakewood, Washington. And I'm excited to share with you my Eagle proposal presentation. During COVID-19, my troop utilized the space at Fort Slocum Park to have our meetings. I want my project to benefit the local community, scouting community, and also the orienteering community. The local community by making the space a more welcoming, more presentable place. The scouting community by allowing scouts to complete orienteering-based requirements. The orienteering community by allowing orienteers to have a nicer and cleaner course. There are many ways I believe would benefit the course. One of the first being repainting the points of the course and cleaning out the space around it. Another way is adding a 100-meter pace count, 100 feet pace count, and the compass check station. Also a map of the course by QR code, and also adding a table bench at the entrance of the orienteering course. I've set my project up in 4 different phases. The first phase would be talking to you guys and making sure everything fits your requirements. The second would be revising my plan and making sure everything is good to go before I actually begin. The third phase is the recruiting of my volunteers and gathering of supplies. And then finally would be the 4 weekends I plan to complete my project in. As I mentioned before, there are 4 weekends I would like to complete my project in. The first weekend, I hope to paint the points of the course and clear the space around it. The second weekend, I would like to work on the pace count, the compass check, and also add the QR code of the map. The third weekend, I would like to start and finish my table bench. And the fourth weekend, I would like to test it with an orienteering-based challenge with a Parks Rec staff presence, see my project in action. hopefully most of the supplies I can get donated from places like Home Depot and Lowe's since they have donated in the past. And also scouts can bring their own materials. Thank you for your time and I'm here to answer any questions.
So how long? I didn't know there was an orienteering course out there. Can you kind of help me visualize where it is and how big it is?
Oh, sure. So on the first slide, actually.
Yeah.
This is a map of the course. The numbers are all the points. And then I can show you. Then this is what one of the points would look like. It's like a red and white block. And then some of the paint's chipping away. Then in different areas, it's like it's getting overgrown.
So those markers are out there now. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're hidden. It's supposed to be a challenge, but
Now,
Where's the QR code gonna go? The
So-
beginning? The
right
map?
here, apparently there is a link towards for the map, but it's a lot easier if you just, because everyone has a phone
Every-
now.
yeah.
You can just, and the QR code would just make it easier to go to the website and find
sure.
that map.
That man.
Why don't you share what an orienteering course is for those that might not be familiar with orienteering?
So an orienteering course is kind of like a scavenger hunt. So you first start off by using the 100 feet pace count and counting your pace. And with that pace, you would be able to find the different points on the course. And then you kind of just do a loop.
And it gives you compass.
Yeah, that's what you do.
You're following compass directions when you get to
Exactly, yeah.
each one.
And you show that you've reached the next point, right? Is that?
Mhm.
Because
And then you'd use like your mapping compass to find the next one.
but you record it, so you know you've been to all those points, right? 'Cause
Correct.
They race.
Oh, yeah.
Races to do that, right?
Yeah, they race that.
I enjoy it. I haven't done it in years, but I think it's wonderful.
I have a couple questions on the sign. Do you have to insert the QR code on that? Is that a new sign? Or can you do like a sticker?
Pretty sure you can just put a sticker on.
Sticker. Okay.
A lot of places are starting to just put stickers on the thing. Just making it easier.
And then the other question is, are you gonna build a whole new bench or are you gonna take one of the ones that are one of the Lakewood benches that we have current?
I would like to build a new bench. I think it would last a lot longer than just taking one from a different location and adding. I actually have an uncle who is an architect, so he would be able to help me with that and support me with materials.
Yeah.
So you're going to, at the finale, then you're gonna have staff try it out.
Well, I was planning on having my brother's troop and then also my troop test it out and like, I guess a challenge in a way. And then I would just want, hopefully like for one of you to be there in attendance to see it in action.
Oh, I think we should do it all.
Yeah, me too.
I'm gonna hang out with Sylvia because she's done it before. Have you, the kind of sticker that you're looking for? So that is one of our Discovery Trail signs, and there's actually two. One is at the front and one's there, so we might want to get two stickers. But it just has like a website. So have you looked at the kind of sticker you might want to get so that it, you know, it's in an outdoor setting, it's on that material? Have you thought about that at all?
I haven't thought about that, but I'll try to get back to you whenever I do.
Like Larson Sign does a lot of stickers and things for us, and so that might be a good company to check about getting some made, and then maybe think about ordering a couple extras just so that park staff have them in case it gets damaged or something, then we can replace that. Mhm.
My last question is on Mary's. Is there a current QR code out there?
No,
Okay.
the orienteering course was created by
Cascade.
yeah, Cascade Orienteering. We've partnered with them on events like at Summerfest and things like that. So they're a very active group. And then they wanted to install these new signs because they had a map that they used, but they didn't have markers well defined. And it was when it said Fort Stilicho, it was like a Pierce County park. That's how old the map was. So when they came in, when we started managing it, they updated the map. So it was more current with the current site. So.
And the website is supported through Cascade Orienteering,
Correct.
then, that map?
Yeah, we would just use the same website, just instead of having to type that super long link in, you could just take a picture with your phone.
And then have it right there.
Cool. What a great project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other further comments? And can I get a motion?
We approve the project.
I second it.
Okay. Oh, Alan and Sylvia. Those in favor?
Hi,
Aye.
good job.
Nice job, Cal.
That'll be done by April, right?
I think he's gonna start the end of
Starting
April
March.
and then he'll go in,
Okay,
I think the 4 weeks for.
end of April.
Okay, the next on the agenda is climate change and city tree policy update. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Sunyoshi is what I'm talking about. Cal Sunyoshi. Cal Sunyoshi, get all that out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Looks like it maybe Hawaiian. Yeah.
That one looks almost Hawaiian.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
All right. Oops. Well, we're already getting into it. So, sorry, Jessica Olson, I'm a new development services manager for the city.
Welcome.
Thank you. And here to implement our new tree code. So the presentation, I'll just mention a lot of the changes care more toward like single family residences. So there's a lot of information there and there. So I'm going to touch more on the stuff that might affect the parks and things like that. But the information's there if you want to see it. This is a very summarized version of our code. So there are other things going on in it, but I'll kind of hit the highlights on the major changes and the key takeaways. So there's 3 sections of the code that actually address trees, tree preservation, and tree removal. The 2.48 is more toward the landmarks and heritage board stuff. We now have a heritage tree designation. So you could designate a tree that has value to the community, historical aspects and things like that. And there are some further preservation requirements associated with that. And so that's a permit and a fee that we would provide. And then if it ever gets de-designated for some reason, it would go through a similar process. And that goes through our landmarks and heritage board. Title 14 is our critical areas ordinance. And so that's adding extra protections to Oregon white oaks for the most part. You'll notice in this presentation, there's a lot of changes related to Oregon white oaks, Gary oaks. And then 18A is where our tree preservation and removal code is mostly located. And I'll go into kind of some stuff related to that.
Like that, most likely, yes.
Yeah, so this is a big change. For when you come in and say, oh, do I need a permit for this? Now the answer is probably yes. I'm not going to go through all the details of it. One, especially if it's an oak, absolutely you're going to need a permit. The new things with oaks is also replacement is always required. And there are limited circumstances where you can even remove them, the Gary oaks. And then for anything in a critical area or shoreline, absolutely permit. There's the critical area regulations that are associated with that as well. And then other trees that are not Oregon white oaks that are of, a size that we would consider significant. If they're healthy trees, yes, you need a permit. And then for, like I mentioned, the single family, there is a size limitation where they're exempt. And then everything else that is small and insignificant is
That
take out all
cannot
the-
happen soon enough. I just passed a lot today right across from Iowa Wild School that they obviously people have sold off the second half of their lot, scraped it completely. They took everything in an area that's wooded and beautiful, and it doesn't just affect that piece of property, it affects all the atmosphere of all the rest of the properties around it. But there's a stack of maybe half a dozen big Douglas fir that are all stacked up, and they just came in and took everything.
But this isn't prohibiting them from taking trees, right? It's
In some ways it
In
is.
some
So
ways,
for
okay.
the first step is, do you need a permit? And then that's when we figure out how many can you remove,
Right.
and where can you
Yeah.
remove them? Yeah, so I'll get a little bit of detail about that as well. Making it work with that before. Also to note, the ones affecting parks, so a lot of the parks properties are in those OSR zones. So they'll have a permit. The OSR ones don't have a fee. The OSR 2 is a $300 fee for the permit. So just so you guys know,
what's OSR.
it's open space recreation zone. Yeah, so a lot of the parks are underneath those zones. The main point I wanted you to take away from this slide is, like I've mentioned before, we've separated the Oregon white oaks, Gary oaks out from the significant, they're still a significant tree, but they have more regulations and less opportunities to remove, to more replacement requirements. And anything that's not one that is 9 inches in diameter or larger, if it's dead, dead, disease, dying, we don't consider them significant. The Oregon white oaks, we do. They still have to comply with permit and replacement requirements. So that's the only time you can actually remove an Oregon white oak, disease, dead, dying. And then, or there are some, if you're placing utilities or stuff, there's some other provisions where you could potentially remove them. But key takeaway, much stricter requirements on those. And then other significant trees, if they're healthy, there's going to be requirements and permits related to them. If they're not healthy and they're a hazard, they can just be removed.
If I can add one thing here, you are allowed to trim and prune without permits.
I've got a little.
But not top.
too.
I saw that you can't top the trees. Yeah.
So is it on the disease that disease and does not constitute wildlife habitat, or just is disease okay?
Yeah, so damage or disease, and it's not a wildlife habitat.
But that's not
So
like,
that's kind of,
it doesn't have to be
falling
disease
into
and
that.
not wildlife habitat. If it's disease and wildlife are living it, do you have to keep it?
you would go through the permitting process. It's still
Oh.
considered significant.
Okay.
So we go and
So if it's a,
look for.
if something's
repair.
living, like a raccoon is living in it, but it's dying, you have
Yeah.
to leave it
I
there.
think a habitat would be a little more.
Well,
Like
it
an
really
eagle?
gets into issues next
Yeah.
to the water because you want to
Okay.
keep the dead trees.
We want to keep our snacks. we wanna wrap-
Oftentimes, when we get into those situations, we're going to be looking for arborists to come out, and take a look. give
Okay.
advice.
Okay,
And that is how you would consider it not significant, is having
Yeah.
arborist report or somewhere like public
Right.
biologists have actually documented that. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a kind of single family lot one I was talking about, where, and again, this is just non-Oregon white oak, significant trees. A single family lot under 10,000 square feet and under is exempt. Unless, critical area, shoreline, those sorts of things, Oregon white oak. Those that are larger have a number of trees that they can remove without replacement, and that's what the table is showing. Beyond that, there's going to be some other provisions through the permitting process. And they're complicated, which is why they're not summarized in this presentation. We're able to actually track these through a permitting system as well. So every time a permit comes in, we go and see, okay, they've done so many trees at this point in time. Yeah, and you'd be able to see that on the parcel. So those are the next two are specific to the Oregon white oaks. This is what I was mentioning. There's much stricter requirements when it comes to removal. You can't just remove them because they're messy. They there have to be some, we get that. Yeah. And
Always
so,
leave the leaves out.
yeah, I get it. We have quite a few on our property and I get it, but it's not necessarily a reason to remove one, especially now. And so they have, dead, dying, again, that replacement's required. The second bullet on there is very specific to someone who's developing their property. So think of like a vacant or they're adding things. If there's no way you can actually site the house or the driveway or things like that, we do have provisions to be able to remove them in those circumstances. And there's, again, extra layers of rules related to that.
Because I was going to ask about that, because and is this just for single family homes you're talking about, or is this all?
This one, the second bullet is all sites. Yeah.
And my question would be, for instance, like there's a requirement for us for like ADA access. And so say you couldn't get the ADA
Right.
access if you weren't able to remove a tree that was significant.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two conflicts there,
Mhm.
so that you just have to work through that.
Yeah,
through the
that's where
permitting
we kind of
process.
look within our code of where we have flexibility to cite those things. Because, and we also have like a reasonable use exception, things like that. So it's, if there is a hardship there,
Right.
we hopefully have a path.
Path around the tree.
Sometimes we
Literally.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing to keep in mind for the Oregon white oaks, since they're considered critical areas technically in that Title 14. You also have to protect them during construction, even if you're not removing them. So they have to have a fence, warning signs, things like that. You can't cut certain size roots or put hard surface area within the drip line. So that's just a FYI. We do have protections for them, even if they're not paper. We do still have our emergency removal provisions, and these are for trees where you don't have the time to come in for a permit because it's so hazardous, it might damage your property or person or things like that. So we still have this in the code. The catch is you have to let us know that you did it. And for Oregon white oaks, again, replacement is always required. Same thing for a non-single. So if it's a single family house, they just let us know. We might go inspect it. They have to leave the tree there. If it looks like it was hazard, it's okay. If it looks like they just removed it, they're likely to be cited. But for the non-single family uses, they do have to go through replacement. So there's a permit with no fee associated with that. And we tell them, whether they have to do replacement and how many trees based on the tree that they are supposed to leave on the property. And so we come inspect it.
So it's like a 2-to-1, it said, right?
Yeah, typically the replacement's 2-to-1, and that is based on the diameter of the tree, not on the number of trees.
So the diameter of the tree that
Yeah.
fell onto your parking lot.
Yeah, or that they removed because it was going to fall. I don't think we would make them replace a tree. No.
Oh, you don't?
No.
So if
If
it
they
falls over,
removed
okay,
it, yeah,
okay.
we would say, commercial, they removed a tree. It's the easiest one for me is if it's, say, a 30-inch tree. Double that, so that's 60 inches. Your replacement trees are going to be between 2 and 3 inches if you can get them that big.
Uh-huh.
So that's say you get a 3-inch tree replacement, that's 20 trees.
Oh, you have to
That they're
replace all the
replanting.
diameter.
Yes, yeah.
Whoa.
Because I found it
Yeah,
very
yeah.
difficult. I was on the team
So
to
we're-
write this and
We've been
it's hard to find the trees.
talking about being flexible with that.
Okay.
And they don't have to be oaks necessarily. It's,
Yeah, and well, on oak trees,
could
you
find-
cannot find sufficient number of trees in a 2-to-1 replacement. So
Yeah.
if an oak tree comes out, it's 2-to-1, but it's not going to be an oak. It'll be something other than an oak tree that is native and hopefully
A hardwood.
non-invasive to this area
Right.
and doesn't use a lot of water.
Right, and
it's
20 of them. I mean, putting 20
Yeah.
trees is a lot of trees. Where
Or
Right.
the other option is pay into the account, tree
Oh.
tree replacement fund, and then that is a
Yeah.
fund that's set aside for these kinds of situations. And then we go to the city council and then say, we have X number of thousands of dollars. How would you like to spend that, city council?
yeah.
And then our urban forester is gonna make sure we're not gonna plant trees that outcompete each other so that.
We're gonna
Just-
get into that.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, so and on the replacement side, just for awareness, so they're a little pricey, so that the 2-inch replacement, you're paying into the fund is about $350 per tree, and the 3-inch is $450. So say you went with 3, theoretically, those 20 trees is about $9,000.
Yeah.
So we're looking at, as those come in, how hard they are.
The other thing that we'll be doing is if you're applying for a tree removal permit, we're doing an on-site inspection. And that's important here because I don't think property owners are that familiar with the number of trees and canopy that they have on their property already. And by looking into that, we can probably get the numbers down.
okay,
So that,
So it's
there
definitely
is
a
a lot of
case by case.
sensitivity to that.
that's
But
good.
after we've done all this notification with 30,000 notices and everything else, for those who cut down trees illegally, it's a different situation.
The flexibility when they do come to us.
Yeah.
maybe
not
a
so
little
much
harder
when they're
when they
sneaking on
don't.
Sunday afternoon.
I was just saying, how are you gonna get
Exactly.
notified that somebody cut down a tree?
Well, like you said,
Neighbors.
yeah.
Yeah, people
So,
will.
Before I have to,
Calling.
before I have to run out of here, maybe just say what the council's difficult task was balancing a lot of interests here. But two underlying goals which compete with each other were very important. One was to allow people to reasonably develop their property. We don't want to take people's property by making things so restrictive that they can't build a house or they can't subdivide. At the same time, we want to increase the tree canopy in Lakewood over time. And surprisingly, surveys show that since Lakewood's been incorporated, our tree canopy has increased in spite of development. That's not Oregon white oaks increasing the tree canopy. It's generally Douglas fir, which are invasive in prairie, but still, when you're talking about sinking carbon, keeping down, urban concrete
yeah.
heat pads, like it still reaches that goal. Two competing interests that were
Mhm.
always kind of top of mind in the balance.
It's not
There's
easy.
also a whole series of opportunities to if you're building something, we'll be flexible on setbacks, parking, things like that. And if you make an effort to save trees, we'll reduce your parking requirement. So the whole series of interplay here was trying to find the right balance for this, like Mr. Anderson said.
Yeah, we do have a number, it's some of the final page, a number of incentives, and provisions to, in situations where we understand if you can't use your lot because of the trees, we're gonna make accommodations to be able to,
A treehouse.
So just a couple more. We did talk about maintenance. So yeah, toppings prohibited, trim, prune. We're not gonna make you do a permit for those either. So you just do them as needed. There are a couple how-tos for just the general audience and utilities that are have links in our code as well. Right of way, they do have the ability to remove. They just have to let the city know in order to place any kind of infrastructure, utilities, things like that. So there is a easy way to get through for all the things that we need to build up the city. So again, just to summarize those significant changes, the lot size did change for the single family exemption. Industrial properties are no longer exempt. They have to go through the permitting process the same. Oregon white oaks, stricter regulations there for preservation. Again, incentives, we just talked about that. Reasonable use exceptions for those Oregon white oaks in case you can't get around them. And then they are part of the critical area ordinance, not just the woodlands, all of the Oregon white oaks are. So any other question?
The city designated the Oregon white oak as a tree of significance, or what was it called?
Is a priority species?
Priority species.
Yeah.
And is it just because they're native to this area, the prairie? What's why Gary Oaks? Why not a cherry tree? Why not an apple tree? Why not a?
I think just
A tree.
because they're a tree, there's so many, and not the whole city, but there are a lot, and I might be speaking out of turn here, but when you remove them, there's really not an opportunity to get that species back, and they're so native to the area and prominent.
They're more
trees.
important as a habitat than they are as a tree.
They're also known as a key,
Squirrels love them.
Yeah.
Another way.
but they're known as a keystone species. So they're like at the very top. And when you remove that species, then the whole rest of it starts going
Interesting.
cattywampus.
Yeah, I also read a report about, if you go back in time, 150, 200 years ago, we probably had about 30% more Garryana oaks here than we do today.
Mhm.
So it's dwindling, and they're such a slow growing tree. So everything that we can do to try to preserve them, the better off we are.
You have a lot of your OSR zones completely dominated by Gary oak trees. So those will be fairly well preserved in the future, but it does have a limited range.
Yeah,
That
it's only
range is
halfway
getting
through
smaller and smaller.
California north.
Mhm.
And in
All the Willamette
DC,
Valley's
On the
full of
west
it.
coast, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at Tacoma, Lakewood to Tacoma, they were on that South Tacoma corridor because they went all the way up, and we had Metro Parks had Oak Tree Park right there
Mhm.
north of Ward's Lake. And then it extended all the way down into South Park. So, 200 years ago, South Tacoma Way was probably primarily dominated by Garryana oaks because you can see them in spots.
And kind of as a counter to that, where the Lakeview area is? It's like 104th, 108th, the railroad tracks. Can you see a lake from there? Used to be able to, before all the fir trees were there.
Mhm.
So
Sure.
the
Yeah.
fir trees kind of took over the prairie out here.
Fir trees like the sunlight, so they grow up and they overshadow those oaks, and then the oaks they start losing branches.
There we go, excuse me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Gotta go pick a council member.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's nice.
I don't have any problem with people building a house and removing the trees that they need to remove in order to, for the footprint of the house and for the driveway and for, the lawn and whatever. But my big issue is when they come in and just scrape the whole area flat, and there's just no excuse for that. Those trees weren't going to get in the way. They weren't doing anything. And we had a neighbor just up the street this last year who bought a house, and the first thing they did was they took down 8 trees out of their backyard, and the neighbors were livid because 8 trees is a lot of trees. They just scraped everything flat. And, I like grass as well as the next person, but not if it means you're not gonna have any trees. So sorry, that's just my personal.
I think the way this is written is very fair. I think
It's difficult to administer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that we
Challenge.
spend about $200,000 on administration of the tree code today.
Yeah,
With the new code, it will probably be in excess of $300,000.
Well, the
So
key
that's
is
going to be the,
site inspection, so, I mean, that's the
Well, the-
key issue here.
and
so.
also the neighbors and whatever gotta know, or else you'll never find out.
well, if I can just, I have to be very careful with private property rights, because if the neighbor reports to one of us that a tree has been removed, we have the right to go up to the sidewalk to the front of the property and take a look. We can't see the tree, we can't see the stump, we're kind of stuck. Then we can go knock on the door and ask the question, hi, and we're with the city and we have reports that you remove a tree. And if they allow us on the property, yes. And if they say, no, my neighbor is wrong, we're pretty much done.
Yeah, that was my question earlier. How are you gonna enforce this?
I can tell you that we will have some success with enforcement and then other areas where we will not. And on the shoreline issues, unless we hear it, we're probably not going to be aware of it.
See, Tacoma uses aerial photography for enforcement of their tree code. I know that.
Think that our attorney would have some issues with using that approach.
So do we have relationship with tree removal services around here to make sure that there is
We
some?
have tried.
We've
Yeah,
tried.
I know you can't do it all, I
I
know,
did a nice sweep of Google and sent a
Yeah.
lot of emails and
Yeah.
got 0 response.
because that's their money that they want.
Reader is, they came in like.
Well, yeah,
We're
they'll come
happy about this, yeah.
They
but-
come and knock on your door and say, we'll take down those 2 trees in front of your house, and it's, no, you won't.
Yeah, after a big storm, often you start seeing,
Yeah.
big windstorms, all of a sudden you see a lot of folks taking their trees down.
Mhm.
You'd mentioned something about, the forestry, like, are you gonna chat about that? Is like your,
Yeah.
I'm waiting to end up that discussion.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
good, all right.
We have an agreement with University of Washington Evans School to prepare an urban forestry plan for the city of Lakewood. The plan is to be culminated with a presentation to the council the end of May of this year. We have a lot of work to do in a very short period of time in using students. They are about halfway done, and this month, in March, we'll be doing the financial analysis of what it would look like for the city of Lakewood to bring forward a tree preservation or a urban forestry plan. My estimate is if the city of Lakewood were to do it full blown, it's between $500,000 and $600,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I don't think the city can afford that, so we're looking at a progressive way over time to bring forward a tree forestry plan. Part of this too is we're moving very quickly in order to get this going. And there needs to be a public outreach component, which is missing. But that can't be helped given the time frame that we are working with Evans School. So we'll likely put forward a proposal to the city council that says, this is what your tree forest plan could look like by doing it over a 5-year period and working towards that goal between $500,000 to $600,000. But at the same time, you need to also start looking at doing some public outreach. Now, we already have a lot of information with the tree preservation code where we need to plant trees. So a lot of this work has already been done through the tree preservation analysis that's been performed already. But all these pieces have to come together, and that's gonna be part of what the city council is ultimately gonna have to take a look at. The Parks Board and the Planning Commission will be having a joint meeting to talk about this in the early part of May. And the reason the schedule is so important is it has to be completed by May because that's when the students are done. And they have to present their Keystone project to the university, so that's why we have to maintain this schedule, and it helps us too, keep momentum going. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with myself and Tiffany Spear, probably you at some point. About trying to put all these key components together as well as the parks. So I don't want to leave anyone behind, but we are on a path.
So is there a review process from other urban foresters to look at their plan?
Our plan.
The plan that they're making. for us?
There will be the opportunity, we're doing as we move forward, we're taking a look at other communities that have done urban forestry plans. So there's already a certain component of review going on. So that part is there. But if you're looking at a full blown public outreach program for this, one city took 2 years.
Yeah.
It's been $500,000.
Yeah.
So, that's just, we can't afford to do that. I'm sorry. So we need to come up with a public outreach program, and we learned a few things from the climate change public perception study as to how we might do that. So we want to bring forward the initial pieces to this board, other boards in the council, say this is what it could look like. This is how you can start putting away money to create a bank account to do it. And here are some pieces that you need to take a look at and kind of go back and affect things.
Is there ever going to be an urban forestry position where you'll have a manager that's going to be?
Yes, more than one.
Okay, so you have a department. Okay.
You're gonna have to have trucks, annual maintenance, street trees are gonna have to be addressed for the first time. We'll be looking at very specific types of native trees that we want to plant. And because of climate change, we'll be looking at wanting to introduce trees that are drought tolerant. But at some point, we're gonna be asking the council, we need to take a look at carbon sink, because we got a lot.
Right.
And we're not even looking at it, and there could be a market for that some future day.
Right.
So there's a whole nother economic piece to this.
Could I just comment on your planting of non-native trees?
Sure.
Because I'm on the,
Did I say non-native?
you said.
I meant
climate-
native.
Native, well, okay, good, as long as you stay native. Because
I got going here.
Last time we were here, we were talking about the parks, and there's 13 trees at Ward's Park that we want to, we're gonna plant Gary Oaks alongside this leafy green tree. It's called leafy green oak, and it's on our plan to do that. And I just want to ask, just be careful, because I mentioned it to the Noxious Weed Control Board, and the WSDA said, well, we have a process for all that. As I looked into it, I got a comment from the County Weed Coordinator in King County, and conversations going about this particular leafy green oak tree. So I have more information about it. It's probably not something we want to do. It's drought tolerant. It's not native. It's native to Hungary and Italy. It's a Northern European. It tends to, all those white oaks from there tend to interbreed with our Gary oak. So we could be actually making the demise of the Gary oak, and it's partly shade tolerant. So it could become invasive, which is what my weed board is all about. No invaders.
I went and looked that up after our last Parks Board meeting and read about it. It seems like a good tree. but
It seems like it's a
doesn't
beautiful tree.
necessarily
They have it
really
in
fit
Seattle,
Yeah.
but there's some other, it's like, it comes with its own, it co-evolved with its own pests in Europe, which we don't have. And so it can outcompete our Gary oak. So we don't want, it's a beautiful tree.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, we're always in the midst of this
Yep.
stuff, the private property rights issues.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I mean, if we're gonna
Unintended
plant them on purposes,
consequences,
let's not do that. Let's not have blackberries and ivy and.
This whole thing is gonna be a process for years.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't plant those, I'll just tell you that.
Oh, good. No, but you
The
just.
Scotch broom, the
My great
blackberries.
grandfather
and the-
did. He
and,
literally came here
ivy.
and planted it. That's why I'm on the board.
So that's a real short synopsis of what's going on. More to follow.
Terrific.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased
Thank
you're
you. You're
doing
doing
that.
an excellent job.
And you really want to take a look at what we've done as far as tree plantings. Take a look at some of the industrial parks and warehouses around the city of Lakewood, particularly on 95th Street. If you take a look at the number of trees that we've planted, in essence, to hide the warehouse, you know, over time, it is very significant, more so than anything anyone else has done. But that is a requirement for a lot of commercial industrial development is tree replacement.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments on this topic? Okay, moving on to Fort Silicon Park entry improvements.
Move your stuff.
Thank you very much.
Easier than last conversation I just had. That's one you can't win. Yeah, the one, people want it down, oh my goodness.
Good grief. Is it gonna pull if I pull it? I'll just put it on top. I'll just pull it on top
Yeah, there you go.
after they get to the end.
Wow. What, and then how did on earth did you print this?
That's on a plotter.
It's huge.
That was fine.
Wow.
All right, we're bringing out some of the. We got most of those improvements on this one, so.
So this was presented to council about a month ago. So we applied for and received a grant from the Transportation Improvement Board for complete streets. So they awarded us $746,000. And our proposal at the time was sidewalk next to the coffee shop down to the I'll call it the dog leg. I really don't like that intersection of Dresden. The dog leg, we'd go onto a trail because it's hard to see, but there is a gray line here. So right away is actually way over here. Everybody might think this is park, but it's actually a city right of way
Oh,
up to this dash gray line, which you can see better under the trees and not so much in the
oh,
depths.
wow. Oh, I see.
So
I see it there.
Here.
put a
Yeah.
trail down all the way down to Angle Lane and then a sidewalk along Angle Lane over to Hipkins. Since that discussion, there's been, oh, well, how about a roundabout?
We're talking about trail, like gravel trail.
No paved, it'll be a paved mixed trail.
It's gonna go straight like that?
Well, meander.
And that's Angle Lane down there.
Yeah.
Let's say the only straight parts, right where we can actually get onto a flat. We
Okay.
have a lot of contours we gotta work with.
Oh,
over
okay.
here. We're trying to miss some
Okay.
trees, which is a perfect meeting to
Yes,
talk about that.
unless you want to pay
Um,
through the notes.
As Dave said, we are on a path. And we will be
Yes,
here
we're on a
soon.
path.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this was going to be combined with, and I apologize, Angle Lane's cut off, is we were going to finish Angle Lane on the other map, which I have over there, and come up Hipkins. So we were going to combine
Oh.
both projects. We were running into some hiccups on Hipkins with right-of-way acquisition for a roundabout on Hipkins. So we've decided to split them again. Because Hipkins is actually funded through the transportation bonds to the council. And this is mostly funded through TIB, plus we're gonna have to ask for some best roundabout at the end.
And the road is underneath here, right?
The end
You
of
can't hardly see it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the actual road.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
here.
you can see
Okay,
the
so
road right
this is
here.
paralleling the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's the road.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, it's.
It lines up. right
Well,
here.
we're gonna do all. the-
Yeah, you shouted, but all of a sudden it was peeking out.
That'll
I
be
got
a
it.
separate project from this. Now. But it was presented as one whole because we thought we were gonna do it as one whole big massive project. And now we're working on strategies of get this constructed, get Hipkins constructed, and I'm working on Silicon between 87th and Weller. We are gonna make this area a little upset over the next couple of years. I think.
It sounds
But
like
it's gonna
it.
be great when we're done.
It bonds us.
It bonds.
It's what we do.
Well, as long as I'm not the comment. So, water department's combining with us on this project. They will be redoing the water from Stillicum down to roughly Dalton, right? Correctly? Roughly.
What's the green?
The green is that's gonna be.
Restoration.
That's torn up.
That's Old Road.
Oh,
Okay.
that's what that
That's
is.
you will no longer be.
Now,
So
when
gravelly
the
right there.
idea is when you come now, you're turning down and it's like, where's the park? Oh, and you turn into the park and there's that word, how do I not go to the park? You kind of have to hiccup around.
It's the dog leg.
It's, yeah, it's really hard.
agree.
It's, there's site distance issues and people coming and going and where's the stop sign?
And
What's it-
Yields
Yeah.
first and.
The yields, I always like.
So the idea is to really clean up that, so it's really creates more of a entrance to the park too. It really becomes
safe
something special, right?
So Our very
Right.
straightforward project has now turned a little bit more complicated.
Right.
But it's the right thing to do when
But
you're
it-
doing the right thing, so.
So you have to somehow go up here, to go around.
No, this is just an individual, yeah, so this is
Yeah.
the road, this would
And
be
then
the
you- but you
individual.
Come up
Yeah.
this side
Want
to
to add
go
up there,
there
Mary,
and
about
come
the
up.
wayfinding and park?
We're gonna talk
sign.
about that kind of in the end,
At the
but
end.
why are you, do you want to describe what we're doing up there a little bit more, or are you?
Well, I mean, it's a roundabout. If we haven't seen enough in town.
I know, but,
obviously-
but this is for historical park, give us a little bit of detail.
Yes.
I guess I've seen enough of them in town.
but
So really,
does
so
fix
we're
things
bending
up.
over to match up with the west end of the dog lake for the
Mhm.
most part.
That's
of
good.
it. So it made the most sense than
Mhm.
trying to go the other direction, because obviously we have houses that we'd have to deal with.
Around, yeah.
Yeah, a lot easier to deal with open land. We're actually doing a little bit of a road diet through here, which allows, this space to now become green as well and planted differently.
Are you gonna put anything pretty in there?
We are going to provide with the project, power and water. That'll be for somebody else to beautify later. Us engineers, we're more
Oh,
linear, let's get it done.
Yeah. The green areas will be landscaped in such a way to create, a sense of place and a sense of
Mhm.
space and take up old road and put it. Some of it could be turf, some of it may be trees and plantings and things, so.
okay.
We do have to worry about this side just due to the power lines above,
Mm,
so we'll
okay.
make sure whatever we plant
Mhm.
is, not gonna go. up.
Yeah. The other thing that, well, we'll talk a little bit about the sign project, because that, we're working on that a little bit, but we'll be doing some additional entry improvements, some wayfinding, so where am I and where am I going? Because we've all been to the park 100 times, but there's lots and lots of people that come to the park and it's like, am I here for baseball? Am I here for soccer? Am I gonna go to the RC area? I want to go to the, I heard you had a dog park. You have a lake back here? I heard there was a playground and now there's a barn and there's a concert where? So it's really hard unless you know where you're going to know where you're going. So we're gonna be working on that a bit too.
And we still have one road into the park itself,
Yeah.
though.
That's right.
Well,
That's
you
right.
have
Hmm.
angle.
You got
That-
angled
that
in
is-
down there.
But it stops.
And it has open road.
Right.
Yeah, and we
Oh, that's
do
true.
open it for flushing things in and out when you have large events, but it is primarily pedestrian access
Mhm.
place.
Well, the biggest impact to residents would be the Dresden loop will now be cut off.
Oh, here.
Oh,
So
Yeah,
it will
you-
not be a loop around, which
Mm.
I've heard maybe it's the school district might be a little upset for their buses won't be able to use that.
yeah.
Thought they'd do something a little different.
Yeah, how do they turn around?
Well, my neck of the woods, here's a bad thing, but they do it. So,
Yeah.
Ooh,
Obviously a temporary access point. We're working on timing, trying to get this out the door. We have water combining with us. Water piping is a long lead item right now.
So this dead ends right here.
Well, the road does, there'll still be a little to access the house.
Okay.
So they'll have. kind
But
of
I was thinking there might be a turnaround.
Yeah, I might put a cul-de-sac more to the left of your finger there.
Yeah.
So there's temporary access.
Put a turnaround at
So
some point.
well, it's not on
is
that
this where it is?
hatched up
Temporary?
here. We have temporary
there.
access into the
Oh,
park.
Okay, just right through.
Oh.
So we're gonna be in the middle of still, Western State Hospital is gonna at some point start doing their thing. We have a ball field project that's gonna be happening right up there. We have special events and activities occurring. We have street projects happening. There's a lot going on. And-
Boy.
And when you come every day and walk that dog, you don't like anything to change. So
Right.
so we're really gonna do our best just to be fluid and to provide temporary access when we can, a loop around access when we can. The idea is if we can get you in that parking lot and get you back on
Yeah,
the old entry road, which will change. You
right.
could then get back into the park if something was mixed up. So we're really gonna work well with our transportation friends to do everything that we can and again, be fluid, like, huh?
Oh.
That's
So-
10 years from now, that temporary access will be that access, I'll bet.
It'll
you.
probably.
Into the ball.
Long as it don't
or
get
something.
over
That'll put the city
trees,
manager
right?
on that one.
Yeah. It's.
And
But-
we're really hoping to have as much of this done and opened up as possible before Summerfest.
July 15th.
Wow.
Really?
Wow.
That's their-
Wow.
It's a.
Now that you've separated the two, you'll have an easier time of doing that, right?
Yes, still not easy, but easier.
I want Vito to
This
remember.
was always gonna be phase one of the project to try to get it done, but now that we have water included, it still has challenges.
So,
With this project, since we're talking about access points, we were gonna put a raised crosswalk at 92nd to cross Elwood.
where you can see the park. Where these are not drive roads, these are pedestrian created
I
access
see.
points because of, the cow paths that are regular. I mean, we do use this for maintenance. But these are created by people primarily, right?
Just show you right where you need them,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And truthfully, Parks gravelled them right before last year's Summerfest, so that we actually opened up and we're using them for egress of the
It
site.
helps
So
with those big events, which are big, we're getting more and more big events, so having really a standardized transportation traffic plan is gonna be really important.
we are looking at, once the trail moves into the canopy of the trees, some sort of low level lighting is what we were pushed towards. We haven't figured out what that'll look like, but obviously that's gonna be the more, it's called the scary part, right? Because you're in the trees. It's
It would be nice.
to have something to help out.
Remember, you can prune them up.
Yeah, we'll be doing that. And I just, Vito, as you've been around probably the longest of all here, with me. But, and maybe Sylvia, you remember this back in the day too, but do you remember when we first started the Lynn Horn plan? We were
Oh,
doing the
sure.
meandering trail through
Yeah.
this area. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
change was hard. Change is hard for people and early cityhood change was challenging, but the path along Stilican Boulevard that we put on the inside of the trail, which is really just a
Yeah.
covered sewer line. People used to have to walk between the privet hedge and Stilican Boulevard, for the sidewalk there, which was really dangerous. And so that sidewalk's used 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
all
All the
day
time.
long. So I think people are just gonna love that.
all done.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff's gonna be
Yeah.
used.
You build it, they'll.
So how do you do this here? Do you do like a little ramp
It's gonna
down?
be a driveway approach.
Oh, okay, a little apron
Yep.
and then you just drive.
Exactly.
And the other thing is that we're being strategic. I'm sorry, I'm jumping right in here. We're gonna be strategic in how we put our gates. Or
Mhm.
Troy, you wanna come show about that?
Well, it's actually on your.
It's actually on these exhibits.
Oh, okay.
It's-
Oh, I see.
Personal exhibits.
If you can see the yellow,
Oh,
Little
yeah.
yellows, those are the
Yeah.
The
gates.
little yellows are
Ah.
the gates.
Oh, okay.
It's nice.
It's got 3 gates there, so we're gonna reutilize the 2 here, but they'll actually go here and then there'll be 2 new gates put here in the.
Two here, go where?
so the two that are existing right here. are
Oh,
gonna
those
be
two go
reused.
back there,
Yep.
and these
These
two.
are brand new.
These
And
are
close
brand
to
new.
the roundabout to keep people literally from trying to
Right.
get.
Yeah, you
Right.
can open up part and not another part when
Yeah.
things are
Right,
happening.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And also you can close the park down, say if there's a baseball game that was gonna be late, especially with the new fields.
Yeah.
Just have that little thing, then they
Yeah,
can
that's
just
a good
exit
idea.
out and not.
Yeah.
We also talked about just using that as the exit out and not even,
Uh-huh.
closing everything else off so that you don't have people going
A
out.
permanent temporary road.
Temporary access.
Yeah, so this is gonna have to have a gate too.
Yeah. it will have a
We'll
gate.
see how that
That
works.
temporary.
Yeah.
Temporary
It's
gate
like
here.
portables at the schools. They're temporary.
Yeah.
They're for 20 years.
Yeah.
So, very cool project.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
great.
remember where we're at estimate wise. We are obviously with the roundabout and all that, it's killing our budget, but
Mhm.
city manager and council seem on board with this, so we don't feel like they're going to,
And This is
No,
blacktop
get them.
surface.
that will end up being a
Yeah.
blacktop surface. Yeah, we.
And how wide is that?
10-foot trail with
2-foot shoulders.
2-foot shoulders to meet the mixed trail.
Nice.
And no striping, no lining or anything,
Not currently.
wide open range.
We like to leave it wide open.
So can
It
you-
looks like the road.
This is
That's
a
what we
tough,
walk
this is a
through.
tough one. Can you
You can use
do
it for
the
different things
drain
that way too.
asphalt? The porous asphalt?
Pervious.
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 We don't like to do the pervious only from the perspective that number 1, the soils disperse great as it sits. Number 2, the maintenance on the pervious is a lot more difficult.
Is it
That's more
interesting?
expensive, especially into the trees. I came from a jurisdiction that did a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
Maintenance.
If you haven't developed the site for the water and it becomes impervious, which it does because it clogs and it fills up full of vegetation in our beautiful state of Washington.
You got the moss growing.
And then it ends up being,
Crown on it, so-
water.
Planter.
Just tip the
That's what
whole
they
way
turn
around.
out.
Yeah, which is good too.
Microscopic
Is
planters.
that trail pretty dry all the time or is there puddles?
We did an
Well, right now it's
asphalt,
just
probably
short.
almost half a mile asphalt path at Snake Lake. And I pulled it out in probably 10 years. Yeah, all the tree roots were damaging it. So we pulverized it and just put gravel over it.
Yeah.
ground it down.
That is the fear with us leaving as many trees as we're trying to leave on this. We're trying to save as many trees as we can. It's
Thank
not
you.
quite as snaky as it looks
Yeah.
there. This is an older schematic. We had to go with the guidelines for paved paths for bikes, so trying to save as many as we can.
This is completely ungated, it looks like too, all the way
North to
out
south, yes.
through here.
And the only gates they're gonna have are the entry
Yeah,
points.
we
making
have,
sure
you know, logs and things that we utilize to keep people from going, and we really don't have too much trouble on that road, off that road.
And then it'll be, you know, access from the sidewalk, basically right there at the dog park. They would go behind the gate that's already there on Angle Lane and come up to the trail.
How long is this actually from there to there? Is it like half a mile?
A little bit more, it's almost 7,000 feet.
Oh,
almost.
I'll go over.
It's a
Wow.
little bit more, yeah, well, from 7,000 all the way to the intersection, so it's about a little bit more.
Wow.
That's
That's pretty good.
Did you guys identify the kiosk that's there now when they did the
It's there,
survey?
I've left short of the kiosk, I'm gonna blend it in.
Well, I was just wondering where it was.
It's right near the end of the haps there.
Oh, is it right there? Or right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that little.
Interesting.
If you can see
Kinda where
the trees, more power to you.
Magic.
When is this getting started?
Yesterday.
So
Soon as I can get this
Another one of
done.
those things where we've had some
Okay.
technical computer glitches that have
How's
delayed
the
us.
permitting?
We don't have permits.
They don't have to deal with permitting, so that's the
Hopefully
other
within
thing.
the
They don't
right
have
of
to
way.
Deal with permitting like we do.
We have a lot of
Just
exemptions,
come on in and make it
including taking trees down, so.
Journey.
wow.
Yeah, so I think the only thing, I don't even think.
So
we're-
where are you starting?
So we're, I think, gonna sequence it so the contractor starts at the north end, because we would like to try to have the roundabout done before Summerfest if
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If not, we will work with powers to be on how we're gonna make Summerfest, you know, function as well as it did last year.
And what'd you say about doing this at the same time as Hipkins?
That is not gonna happen now.
Yeah, it
We
was.
Okay.
Shipkins due to a acquisition on North
Mhm.
at
Trying to figure out
Hipkins.
if I'm gonna get to church.
Well,
Yeah.
it's never gonna actually happen at the same time as Hipkins. If we were to award under one contract, we would force the contractor to work here first. Because this is gonna be the detour route for it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I was just gonna say, if you take off both of there really isn't a third road, you know, to go from
So you really would have been mad if I started still looking.
100 Bell Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, it's just no place else to go.
And then Mary gets to work on signage.
Yeah.
Yep, we're working on
kinds of-
signage.
All kinds of potential for beautification.
It's a great project,
Yeah.
really good
It's
project.
exciting to clean that
Yeah.
up. You know, we've
Yeah.
talked about that over the years and then all of a sudden it's like, what do you think about a roundabout? I was like, well, look,
Yeah.
we talked about it.
Because we threw an application in at a win saying, hey, can we get this complete?
We love that.
Well,
Does that orienteering course go anywhere along here?
No, they're.
Oh, they're over there.
Up
Okay.
by the hill, by Pierce College down in
Okay.
that back area. Mhm. Doesn't mean it couldn't be.
Easy to find it.
Questions? We got, it's
Oh, I think it's great. This is
Great.
something
relatively
we talked
straightforward.
about 15 years ago,
I know,
get the
so good.
entrance so that people know how to get into this park.
Yeah.
They're coming for the first time.
Yeah, when this is all done, it'll be good to measure that for people to walk, to go, this is whatever, how many feet long, because that's what everybody wants.
They'll measure
They want
it
to-
themselves.
Oh,
anyway.
sure.
Yeah.
But then to document it so everybody knows.
Oh, you mean like this is a mile
Yeah.
long?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we say, you know, basically from Stilicho or from Albertson's end to the Far West Drive-In, it's like a mile, right? You
Okay.
go around Wahop Lake, it's just about a mile. People like.
Yeah.
to
Yeah, that
track
distance, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so. It's nice.
I have to like correct myself, it's only 3,200 feet from there to the end.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
3,200 feet.
Not
Hipkins is a little.
3/4 of a mile.
Mhm.
Okay.
We did talk, you know, back when we did Wahop Lake, back in the day, when we paved that, we talked about having some kind of a marker, you know, like a
Mhm.
quarter
Yes.
mile marker along, just to, you know, having something that was kind of fun. So it could be something.
Well, isn't that one of the reasons why that one area got kind of looped out a little
Try and get
further
it to a mile,
to get it to a mile?
part of it. I think there's probably a tree we were saving or something, but we did talk about it, and then we talked about would be like a really fun, like art project or Eagle Scout project or
Eagle
something
Scout.
where you could take a look and whether you got like a marker that you could get in the soil that someone wouldn't steal, or a sign or something that would show, you know, your pathway, because people like to
Nice.
That's thermoplastic that we heat.
Well, I know the
Oh, yeah.
military goes out there and does their 1 mile run.
Yeah, we've got lots of different groups doing lots of different things and it'd be nice to, in fact, the map that we have now at the restroom plaza where the swing is. It has an outline of different trails just because there's 2 or 3 routes that people use regularly so they can count. And then the Nisqually Trail Loop will be 1.7 miles and, you know, again, being ways of identifying those distances for folks that are running or walking or just tracking.
Great project. And to complete the whole thing with the trail, are you looking at by the end of the year or
Oh,
Yeah.
sooner?
for that.
Before that?
Probably.
Okay,
Oh,
by
wow.
the fall.
Cool.
Wow.
I think,
Great.
did we, we're looking to advertise in April.
Yeah, if I can hit the April average. Like that.
So the contractor that's going to do the roundabout will also do all the utilities or is that going to be
Well,
subbed out?
It'll, the prime and whether he subs it out
Okay,
for that work, it's completely up to their.
Okay.
They just have to do 30% of the work to meet our contract requirements, so.
okay,
Cool.
cool. Very good. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank
for the
you.
update.
And especially once it's back. He's gonna do it that way.
I think it's going this way.
Yeah. It's on its own there.
Do you guys want to see Hipkins? I mean, are you interested in
Of
that?
course.
Do you want to show that real quick?
People ask questions. And I gotta pull this out.
Where do you
live?
I live right about a block from Idlewild.
Oh, yeah, over there, where they scalp the land.
It's the only. long wood.
You're north, okay, you're thank you.
Station, what is at the end of it?
This is.
Where's Jack in the Box? All right, there we go.
Okay.
There's 104. There's
Yes.
Angle Lane.
You're taking all
Do you see your
all
house?
the angles, you know, the
chicanes are
the traffic calming.
yeah.
I know, but that's what they call them.
Yeah.
At least that's what the British used to call them when we lived in the.
That's what Bill Larkin called them when they put them in. It was.
Yeah.
traffic
Calming.
So obviously very straightforward project, curb gutter, planter, sidewalk.
Yep.
See the driveway approaches kind of have that extra little angle thing going on.
Yeah.
And a roundabout at north, that is gonna be our new traffic calming. So basically that's about the size of the roundabout in front of City Hall.
No, so that one's a little less. The one in front of Fort Silicon Park size. Well, that's interlocking. If you're familiar with interlocking on Washington.
Yeah.
These are still easier.
What is it? Is that widening?
Sidewalk.
Those.
Oh,
So obviously the continuation of angle that I didn't have on the other sheet. And then when you get closer to Hipkins, we're gonna have a raised crosswalk.
What's a raised cross? I mean, like.
So it's like a speed bump.
Oh, like a hump, a
Okay.
speed hump.
What is the hash mark here?
So that is existing improvements out there, I think.
That's the wide sidewalk.
Curb gutter sidewalk.
Yeah, there is a little piece of sidewalk out there.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
we figure why, I mean,
There is some sidewalk.
And it's
Concrete.
104.
So it's
Yeah,
gonna be
114.
wide and then it gets narrow back there.
no, it's still gonna be narrow. The
this is-
hedge is just existing sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
that We're just not gonna touch.
Okay.
So instead of having somebody try to cross at the intersection, that's why we're putting the crosswalk a
Uh-huh.
little up angle. This is just not a safe spot to cross
Yeah.
right there. So we figured we're gonna have rapid flashing beacons and a raised crosswalk there. For one, it'll help slow cars coming towards Hipkins, having that raised crosswalk, and then the flashing beacons as
Yeah.
people
Slow down there.
coming from Hipkins onto Angle.
So this will be raised also? or-
No, that won't be flat. It'll be
Okay,
one of the
just
corner be
that.
raised, yeah.
But this is where the flashing lights will be, right?
No, flashing will be on Angle,
Oh, here.
To slow you down. And this is just sidewalk on one side.
sidewalk on the south side. And that still meets our grant from TIB,
So sidewalks on both sides.
up Hipkins, and sidewalk on one side on Angle.
And this is
Those
an
are
angle that
driveways.
goes all the way up to the
Driveways,
back end of the park,
Like,
Janet.
Yeah.
they look
That
like
goes
they
all- you know
go
where that
up.
is.
To the, yeah, to Elwood or whatever that is.
Okay, I get it, the driveways.
Okay.
Cool. Great.
That'd be great. As
So-
long as you don't do both of them at the same time, because I have to come down that road to go to
Right.
church and I can't get there.
So when you're riding your bike, you go up over those driveways, is that like on or down?
No, Troy, we're doing flush, we're not doing.
We're gonna make a note of these. Yeah.
Flush,
So-
okay,
so
so we're
it's
not going
like that.
down.
So you'll be.
So bike riders can ride.
Well.
I mean, they can ride the
First
other.
I was like,
well.
there's a lot of blue tires. Blue tires.
There are a couple of blue tars.
Because we are. so-
Yeah, there's a couple I
And
know,
the-
but
and the
you're
sidewalk
right.
right up against the curb. We have to follow the curb. So,
Yeah.
But when we have the planter, it gives us the ability to push that. stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So for bike riders in the park who are approaching down angle into,
Yeah.
go Bell.
Well, he's not right up Slade.
Yeah.
Okay, they can use the trail. So when they're coming this way, they're just, are they still gonna be, they're gonna ride on the
They must have
sidewalk?
taken
or
this
they're
in the
gonna ride?
summer.
If I was a bicycle side ride
Yeah,
on the
trees
side,
are
I don't
leaved
trust
out.
that.
I mean, there's a,
They're
is that
not
what we
dry,
have
so it's
in
not
the,
fall.
like along
Although
Becky's,
lawns are pretty good.
mixed use
Yes,
sidewalks
that's
on
true.
Bradley Lake,
Late
where
summer.
they're wide.
Speeding down that
Yeah,
race.
it was-
It's like an,
Yeah.
But that's gonna
our
be
house, we can only see the
bikers.
in the winter. It's hard to
Right,
see.
right.
There's leaves on the
There's no
trees.
sidewalks,
We
no
can only
shoulder.
hear it. Can't see it.
It's always a nice feature just to hear it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This was the high track.
The property has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 homes.
Well, it was really the first traffic cone
Yeah.
that we did when it, they
This guy
incorporated,
is
Bill
wonderful.
Larkin
This
was.
guy-
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And he does
engineer, and
repairs
he was
here.
from Tacoma,
He works on his.
And his goal
Subarus,
is
and
to
he's got
plant
these
100
like
trees.
8 there.
and to
14 cars.
you know, get things good. So
Call the police department.
it was in response to neighbors fussing about people driving, and then they put it in, then they were fussing about what they put in. And in the early days of cityhood, in the early days of cityhood, it's coming. Run around and trying to fix the problem, right?
Schuylkill Boulevard or whatever, and he was fixing up cars.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing they could do about it. Well, finally, bus stopped someplace else, it's gone, but.
We have a neighbor and they don't park any cars in the garage, but they have 3 cars and then 3 pickups, all on just the little driveway. The 20-foot
So is
setback.
it like a Jenga or like?
I don't know how they get them all out.
They get 'em
I
in.
mean, they've got it, there's gotta be quite a maneuver figuring out which car goes out first.
Okay, Mary, do you want to do any director's report or?
Sure.
Further report?
I just wanted to give you a couple of updates on some projects that are happening. We had a busy council meeting last night. So a couple things regarding the park sign project. We had a stakeholder, we contracted with a firm called Tangram. And while we met with one of our first stakeholders groups, we had a great stakeholders team put together. We had Public Works, we had economic development, we had with economic development, tourism, we had park maintenance, we had Vito came in and helped us. And thank you. We had anyway, and city council come in. And so we were chatting about all of the different sign projects, and the firm did a really good job, and we really felt confident in what they're doing. At the very end, they showed kind of like series of signs that could be used. They were really hired to just focus on our park sign project. So at that time, Bryn Communications, she was also on our team, started talking about she's supposed to be doing these reader boards, informational signs. And then, Paul with Public Works was like, we put in all these signs. It would be great to have, we have all these traffic circles now, and not just that nobody knows how to drive, but it's like wayfinding signs around the community. And Tangram, the principal in the firm, is from Lakewood, and he's been in Colorado for years. He comes back, he's like, I can't find anything. He goes, and God forbid you go into Oak Brook, right? It's like,
Right.
so anyway, we were talking about, gosh, wouldn't it be great to have, this wayfinding program, which Becky has had on her sort of work program wish list for several years. So anyway, all these, and then we talked about, not only wayfinding for parks, because not all of our parks are so big that you can't really figure out where you're at, where you're going. But Fort Steilacoom for sure needs some better wayfinding. And then this popped up right in the middle of it. So we were kind of like, oh, shoot, this would be a great time to utilize this expertise and maybe do something more comprehensive. And so we worked with that company to put 4 different scopes or 4 different projects, because there are 4 different things, to see how we might expand this. And, I love a 2-for-1, and it's like, there's some efficiencies if you're talking about all these things at the same time. And the problem that a lot of communities have is you put some signs in, and then, then Vito gets hired, and then he comes in and we're putting signs in, and then, Alan comes in, and there's all this, we have over 8,000 signs that are just everywhere in the city, and they weren't strategically located. They were just put in as needed or as someone requested, and so the idea is to look at what's the pedestrian experience in the city when you're walking around, and then how do you get from here to there to know I'm coming into the business district, or how do I get to the international district, right? So anyway, we put together a scope of work that included a citywide wayfinding signage program that included a plan on how you install them and where. We put in park identity signs and then redesign with this too. So wayfinding within the park system. We talked about the reader boards from an electronic message center communication, because initially it was like, we're going to just buy one out of a box and here's the 2 busiest roads, let's put them there. And is that really how you want to do it? And then looking at downtown corridor, the city's wanted to create a business district downtown area, and the way the city was developed and created, it's kind of a challenge, right? All roads go nowhere and then they switch. So how we might do wayfinding and really focus on the redevelopment that the city has done. So that came to about a lot of dollars, and it came to about $140,000 with the different program elements. And so we had a long talk with council. There was a lot of surprise. There was a lot of description as to what these mean and how they interact. But there was some concern about are we ever going to get to the park signs if we do all this? How much is all this going to cost, not just to design it, but then to implement it? The idea is, the reader boards are already funded. The park signs are already funded. We have those in our project. The wayfinding throughout the community, as Paul is doing these projects, Paul is Public Works, as Public Works is doing these projects, or as we're applying for grants, they can build those signage into the grants and into the projects so that it's part of that. So the implementation would happen as these streets are redeveloped. And then the only real project that didn't have a funding source was sort of this downtown, working with the business district. And that's something that could happen. You could get like the new owners of the town center and chamber and other groups together and really maybe have that be something that's funded. Anyway, so council talked about it and they thought let's start with something a little smaller. So they decided to do a park expansion to do the reader boards because there's funding for that. And then to work on this while this beautiful new entry is happening, how do we really thoughtfully not just stick a bunch of signs in there that say, go to the barn, go this, how might this be used? And how do we utilize this area and landscape it and design it so that it's meeting the pedestrian needs of all these people coming through and the driving needs. So they just expanded, or they'll be doing it on the 6th, right? Yeah. On the 6th, they'll be expanding the contract to continue with the sign that we were doing and then do this improvement. So it's really more parks related anyway. So we're kind of glad that we weren't taking on everybody else's projects. But anyway, so that's going to be happening. And so
So they landed on a preferred type or?
No, I mean, this for the park signs yet?
Signs, yeah.
We haven't met again
Yeah.
after that because
Pause.
we took a pause because we're like, because what was happening is if we could do all these things concurrently and this firm has the ability and the skills to do that, let's do it all at one time and not again, Band-Aid all around. But now that council's given us direction to go in these 2 directions, we'll come back with the team and start working on those options. So that's coming up. So that's exciting. And
So
more.
you talk about signage here at the entrance. How about up on Steilacoom Boulevard? Is that going to be included when you're looking?
Well,
at
you've got
these
that sign, the monumental sign
The big,
that you can
Are
see
you gonna
from,
stick with the monuments, or you have no clue yet?
well, the council has said that they kind of want it to feel like a family of signs. And the only signs we have in the family so far are our gateways. And so how might that encourage like the park signs? And the idea is too, is if, they've invested a lot of time and money into that. But if we decide, that was the other thing, is if we decided that that wasn't what we needed throughout the whole community, there's a reason for that because it's going to be comprehensive throughout the community. So they weren't quite ready to take that next step
So
yet.
you need to go a different direction, just do it on purpose.
Do it on purpose, right? And have it be something that's kind of branded and really identifiable. And whether the gateways themselves are identifiable as gateways, then maybe the city sign program is identifiable as a city sign program. So it doesn't have to look like that, but they want us to be part of a family because we really don't have that right now. We have blue signs and brown signs. We have square signs and rectangle signs. We have big green signs that are bigger than the post can hold. So some of them kind of sit a little lopsided. So just to have something more strategic.
They are kind of
they put up in height and where they are.
everywhere. It's not very thoughtful or strategic. So that's kind of what we were hoping for, but it was a big like surprise, even though I thought that they'd all been sort of briefed on it. So they really weren't ready to take full action, but maybe watching the process that we have, because the downtown business sign system, if we're creating some other signs, you know, that can be modified, and that could be something that on its own could happen with the business piece of it. And maybe, you know, as we make progress with this, we could add to it, because with the contractor this year, we'll see how we come up. So that's coming up. Dave mentioned something about a joint meeting with the planning commission. I had not heard about that, so we'll have to talk about how that fits into our schedule, because we are planning to meet with city council on May 22nd. So that's our joint meeting with city council that's scheduled. So we'll figure out, maybe we'll have a joint meeting with planning commission sometime in and around that time. The other thing that's going to be coming up is that council chatted last night about this came up at the end of last year, and it never got back put on their schedule because of budget, and their council agendas are so full. It's hard to get things on there, but the naming of Motor Avenue area. We have this area down there, and it's called activities on Motor Ave. We called it Colonial Plaza. We've called it lots of different things. And so we had a conversation about it needs a proper name, because it's being called different things by different people. And so even though I don't think anybody really knows where it is, right? Because it has an identity problem. And so you can say, usually we say it's by the old QFC, which is such a crummy old fallen down building. It's really not the area that you want to earmark.
Right.
And then you say, oh, it's this really nice street with the lights, you know? And so really we shouldn't be calling it that. It should have an identifiable name that gets, starts being recognized by the community. So, but it has, you know, do we want to call it Colonial Plaza because it used to be called the Colonial Center, but was it really called the Colonial Center? Do we want to use that word? Is that offensive to folks? So the idea is to take a look at, have a public process. You know, we are the group that kind of talks about naming things. And so they did update the resolution. So what we're going to be looking at is, I think the action plan, let's see if I have it in my notes here. The action plan is going to be, the council came up with 4 potential names, just based on, we talked about, you know, is it because of a historic site? Is it because of some kind of a landmark that's in the area? Is it because of recognizing, honoring a historic figure or someone that's current? Is it talking about the past, or is it talking about what you hope this area tends to be in the future? So what they're going to do is I gave them a bunch of suggestions. They came up with 4 potential options to survey the community, because you don't just want to say, hey, we're going to name this area. What do you think? So they wanted to start people off, but there'll be an other. And then why would you name it that? And I'm sure we'll get a real mishmash of stuff, but one of them is the 4 options that they'll consider is Unity Plaza, Motor Ave, because it's like, you know, the event on Motor Ave, Theater Square. I said, well, there's an old theater there. Yeah, I said, well, you know, there's 3 active theaters, and we have one that, and I said, so but they really like that, so we're going with that as one. And then Mary Moss says it'll always be the Colonial Plaza to me. So I said, okay, so those are the 4. We'll have an other and give people a chance to suggest names. What we'll do is bring those back, and we'll talk about maybe a way of prioritizing or coming down with some solutions. I did tell the council, you know, when we did this last time, which I thought we did a really good process, but we were really kind of considering 3 things. And then it was, well, we liked one, and then the conversation turned to, but maybe we'll do that. And then maybe we'll name that over there. So we said, I think it's best. We decided at the end, if the park board's going to consider, it's one thing to then vet that out, right? Not, you know, so we'll kind of figure out where people come from. And if we get down to something, we'll narrow it down. But if we're going to make a recommendation, it should be for one thing, not
Like Celebration Plaza or something,
right?
something like that, that would give the idea that you go there to have fun. There's going to be fun things that are going to happen in that area.
So now we know what one anonymous survey, what the celebration was, but something, yeah, to come up with something, and the community might come up with something that we really haven't considered. So that'll be exciting. And again, we'll do some public information to talk about, you know, why we would be naming it, and maybe some history of the area. Because I said, people don't remember the Terrace Restaurant, and really people don't even know that was a theater. They see it's a cool old building, but they don't really, from what we've heard. When we're at events, people don't even know where they're at. They just know they saw some food trucks.
Mhm.
They heard there was a celebration, there was a parade, they really,
Do they know why it was called Colonial Plaza to begin with?
the architecture that was.
Clamp's
Yeah.
wife, one of the founders
Yeah.
out here, his wife was just hung up on that architecture, so that's what they
It all-
used
yeah.
when they developed.
Yeah.
it. So there, I mean, there's a little history to
Sure.
it, but it really
And
has
they-
no.
And
meaning
the
beyond
old
that.
timers in
Yeah.
town, that really means something to them. They remember the theater, they remember the Terrace Restaurant.
Right.
But 90% of the people in town,
Yeah.
that doesn't.
But
have
there is a
age.
metal sign in the grass that says Colonial Center up above it. So I mean, we'll work through this and you'll be a part of that. So at some point, we'll be figuring out how to fit that into your calendar as well, because you have a pretty full calendar, but we'll talk about that as we move along. But that's also new, that's happening. We are in the process of moving forward with, and we have a park CIP update coming up here at some point. I think it's in June. We're moving forward with Wards Lake Park. Stacy did a great presentation last night. We're going to be doing, finishing up phase 1, which is the entry area. And there's a little additional work that need to be done there. And we're going to start on phase 2 because that's the second set of grants. Because we did Land and Water Conservation Fund, oh my gosh, it's the most difficult grant program to work with on. I mean, we've spent probably $300,000. We don't even have a contract yet because of all the requirements and all of the back and forth. And they changed the rules midstream, and the city of Lakewood's kind of the guinea pig. Oh, let's try and see how many ways we can mess with this process, but we're almost there.
2 months away, it's gonna happen.
And then, so what we're going to do is sort of suspend the moving forward with phase 1 and catch up with phase 2 and do them both together. It'll be better on the site. It'll be better on the impact to the residents and the users, and we'll just be able to go boom and get it done. It's going to be really fabulous. So we're working on that. And then also moving forward with the final design of American Lake Park and getting that project finished. And both will be funded. They're both more expensive than we anticipated. We started with Wards Lake in 2019 and 20. And, and it's taken a while to get through the grant process, and now we're here. And then, and then we've added some things based on safety, risk, need. And so anyway, but council recognized all of those things, and just the cost of doing business is more now. So we have one-time funding for parks that they'll be able to do, but we're talking several $1 million. So
When you think, I know people are gonna ask me, American Lake Park, when they start.
if everything goes as planned, we would go after the end of summer because
Okay.
we wouldn't do it in the middle of summer. But if we can get everything done the way we need to get done, the idea would be starting in September, October, and then be done by June to get back. And depending on what's happening, there could be times where the park may be open, but it'll depend on what the construction
Mhm.
schedule is and what that
After
access
summer.
is. Yeah.
How about
Oh,
the-
after summer, we'd never
Sure.
close it in the summer.
About the Camp Murray boat launch?
The Camp Murray boat launch isn't ours. It's Camp Murray land, and it's managed by Fish and Wildlife
Right.
by contract with them. So, the council keeps talking about, wouldn't it be great to annex that or take that on? And it has been a priority of several mayors over my life here. But we don't own the land, and we're never going to own that land. It's going to always stay that way. Every once in a while, someone over there takes interest in maybe doing it, but they're concerned about, safety and access. They don't want the footprint to grow at all. And so if the city was to take it on, it would be, expensive to fix it all, which we would want to do. It's very rural right now. And it would be the second boat launch on American Lake when you have really difficult no boat launching on Steilacoom. So part of it is you have to set your priorities too. And where do you want to invest your resources?
That'd be your third one.
Yeah, because of Wadsworth Street, you technically can get in there too. So anyway, so they're just considering lots of different things. But for American Lake, and if permitting goes as planned, it would be after summer, we wouldn't try and shut that down during the summer. And then for street ends, to follow up with that, we did present the information to City Council on street ends. They had quite a conversation about it. I think they were surprised there was so much opportunity for those sites, which I thought was kind of fun. And then they talked about, maybe we look at doing, we don't have the capacity to do one more thing right now. So So they talked about having something built into the 25-26 budget. Well, we're on 23-24, 25-26 budget. You know, they talked about maybe looking at doing a couple every year, which takes us way out. And they talked about from a prioritization perspective, right now, in that same vein of what I just mentioned, is that why don't we maybe look at, there's big public access on American Lake right now. You know, Silicon Lake, you know, Edgewater is a real challenge, and we were all kind of moving forward with that until there were some problems up on with the property there. So I think we'll be bringing that back in to take a look at that site. But what's on the other side of Lake Stilichum? Is there any public access? And maybe that's the right place to start. There is one of the sites, is 100th Street? Do you remember?
One of the sites was a possibility.
Yeah, and it was, you know, very little encroachment, pretty flat, currently used by the citizens, probably. Westlake?
Yeah.
Yeah, could probably get in there and do an activity to show.
Lighter ones too, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and you could really show that maybe, yeah, this would be an area where you could actually do it and say, hey, see, this is how it could work. It could really be a cool benefit for the community. So when we talked about prioritization, we kind of took a look at that to get started. And so it would be manageable from a cost, easier to fit into what we want to do. But that was that. And then they talked about, you know, is there property that we want to not, you know, to vacate? And really the only one was the one where you can't even get to it.
Yeah, the building's in the
Holly
way
hedge.
and you have to climb over the building.
Yeah, we had to climb over the building and a hedge and go under a fence, and then you're still probably legally trespassing. But so that was the only one. It's like, why not vacate that? There's just not any use. And then the other idea was with Gravelly Lake, you know, those two places, a lot of money for skinny little things. You know, is there property there that could be purchased that you could actually turn into a park site versus, they also talked about the big idea was like doing something with Lakewold Gardens, which, as you remember, that was part of the suggestion of the first street and plan. And at that time, they were not interested in having that public-private partnership. But you know, the idea is sure, you could find, you know, we can develop between these, and we showed that we can. But is there a more efficient way of spending $1 million, right?
Sure.
So, but that's kind of follow up down the road. But anyway, so they didn't necessarily approve the plan, but they reviewed the plan and made some suggestions for moving forward. So that was good.
I know there's several Kiwanian members who are very anxious to hear that report. So whenever it's ready.
Well, it's done. So,
Okay,
you know,
so
I guess
we'll-
if we're gonna go on the road show, we'd be happy to bring it
So I'll
in.
have Bart give you a call.
Oh, Bart, yeah. Happy to share the information. I mean, I think it's kind of fun. And, you know, the first study was really just focusing on what do we have? Where is it? How wide is it? And what's the topography? That was really kind of as far as we went.
Mhm.
The park board was very adamant of, you know, they talked about leasing, or they talked about selling, vacating or selling. And the park board at that time was like, we don't know what this area is going to be in 20 years. Never lose that property. You know, maybe you lease it for long term, but never give it away. Never, because you'll never get it back.
That's true.
So it's funny to now see how, you know, if we were going to do something, what could we do? And it was cool. So yeah, there you go.
So the street ends, now it would be wait for staff to make a recommendation to city council. This is our plan. This is what we'd like to move and see if they agree.
Yeah,
with that.
Yeah, it
Like
would
some
probably,
priority.
it would be tied to the 25-26 budget, and we'd come forward and say, here's the, you know, here's our CIP for this park's CIP for the, you know, we do it every 6 years. And so for that, we would say, well, here's the ones that we think we could do. Here's what the cost and why we picked
Okay.
those. So we'll probably come back at some point and get your concurrence for some things, but probably more in 24.
Yeah.
When we have a little free time.
Yeah, because it'll just sit on the shelf now. for a year.
100%, yeah.
But that's okay, as long as. we
As there's
know
a plan,
we
yeah.
left off, right?
Yeah, we did say 25-26 is when we would be able to really start approaching it unless some other thing happens, but just based on, you know, we've got, as we said, $18 million worth of projects, big and small. This is our person, you know.
I dream about CIP.
Yeah, when, you know, like this whole project, this whole thing, you know, this is one project that, you know, and there's 4 engineers and the techs and people working on that with, and we've got $18 million and we've got. And I helped a little bit, but mostly her. So, it's a lot. So, you know, just trying to get some of our smaller projects like Oak Brook Park and Primley
Yeah.
Park, you know, we have ideas and action plan. We just have to have time to do it, right? And everything's more complicated nowadays with permitting and trees and all the things that we have to do. It just takes time and we just need to make sure we do it right, right? We want to do it right. So there you go. Those are kind of the big things right now.
Good.
Anything-
Is that all?
That was just Tuesday.
Yeah, that was only two.
That was yesterday. Yeah.
Any board comment?
I have one thought.
Mhm.
When we first had our very first meeting, it tells you how long I've been around, right? We talked about what time we wanted to have this meeting.
Oh.
And I asked, could we please have it started no earlier than 5:30 because I was having to drive down from Renton. And
Oh, back in the day,
yeah,
right?
way back. And when I look around this whole room of gray hairs, it doesn't seem like we need to have 5:30 meeting. Maybe 5 o'clock would be better. The only one it might affect is Jason. And we need to ask him, but it's something we ought to think about. Maybe 5 to 6:30 would get us, you know, home for dinner and get you home at a decent time for a change.
Mhm.
But just a thought.
I'm
Yeah,
open.
that'd be fine.
Is
with-
that-
I think that's fine with me.
Works with you too. We could double check
could-
with Jason.
we could-
Jason has some flexibility, I think, in his life. so-
Yeah.
Only
We could
once a
put
month.
that as an agenda item for next month
Mhm.
and just, you know, have some open discussion on.
How does that
15
work for you?
I work right up until it's time to go to Parks Board.
Yeah, so
you know,
you-
at 5 o'clock would get me out of the office sooner.
I didn't know if you had grandpa duty at some
Yeah,
point.
no, Tuesdays is Tuesday's day. This is it.
We'll look too and see if there's anything in the code that we need to like get council approval once we decide, but most of our groups, we will say is Tuesday good. You know, a lot of them have met traditionally at their time forever based on, at some point, some group that
Yeah.
was in the room, so we'll find out, but that sounds, we'll add
At the
that.
time you were working
Nikki
and
on our
I was
next
working
agenda.
and
Right.
Jason was
Yeah.
working and, you know.
And Mary's point, when people apply to be on the board, it says they meet on this day at this
Right,
time.
yeah.
right.
It has to be established.
Yeah, we would want to, if we
Well,
change it, we
But
would change it.
it's just a thought.
Vanessa,
Yeah.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
yeah, she's working over at club.
Mhm.
I work part-time, but I can.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week, but we'll send that out maybe to everybody. We're thinking about that and then we'll have it as an agenda item and consider. I think the day works pretty good, you know, and.
Oh, yeah, Tuesday's fine.
That last day of the month seems to work pretty well for us.
Remember, last Tuesday of the month.
Mhm. So we'll work on that.
I have some leftover crack crab that's calling my name.
All right. Do I have a motion?
From the other
to adjourn
night.
the
I
meeting?
finished
I-
mine
I-
before I came.
So motion.
That planning commission meeting, is May 3rd.
Do we have that on our
Oh.
schedule?
We don't, but if you want to put a save the date, May 3rd is that
May
planning
3rd.
commission meeting.
At what time?
I don't know what time we meet. Do you know what time?
I think it's,
Oh, 6:30.
6:30.
is that the one
So
committee
later
that
on.
you're still on or not on, or you are?
Oh, my wife was on.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's
So we're
here in
still
the
meeting
council,
with
you
council
said?
on the 22nd, so
Yeah.
2 meetings that month.
Yeah, we'll
So
have to
it's-
send that.
I can't do that one. We signed up for a tour of South America in April and then we got bumped to the first week in May and then we got bumped to the last 2 weeks in May.
Yeah, I already
Oh,
have that.
wow.
Okay.
Hello.
What date was
Let's
it?
set something
May 3rd.
about it.
May 3rd.
Is that just safety or what?
No, they said that there's just so many
And the
people.
other one in May.
When I applied for the first one, they
That's
said
what
there
I
were
had.
10 openings
Yeah.
Well, we had.
in an hour.
They must
They
have
said,
said
I'm sorry,
something
they're
about
gone.
Oh.
And the next
Yeah.
one, they said there were 12 spaces.
It's already.
And
I
it was
got
3 hours later when I responded and they said, sorry, we can only take one. We don't have any more space. They just said that the demand is huge right now. Everybody wants to get out and do
Second
things.
meeting, May, in May.
So Nikki, why don't we shut this down since we're all having individual conversations about our lives?